Man left his black wife for a young mistress and took their money, but she made him regret it. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Camila did not expect much from the networking event. She owned a growing boutique business, and she only went to these events because she had to, not because she wanted to. Her days were busy, and she focused on making her business bigger. Talking to strangers felt like a boring task. But that evening, something changed. Among the sounds of glasses clinking and people talking, Camila met Alejandro. He stood out, not just because he was handsome with bright blue eyes and a neat beard, but because of how he acted. He was confident but not bossy, friendly but not too flashy. Camila saw how people liked talking to him. When he saw her, he smiled and walked over. "Camila, right?" he asked, shaking her hand. "I heard someone talking about your boutique. You've done an amazing job." Camila was surprised. At these events, most people ignored her or didn't take her seriously. They thought she was just another small business owner. But Alejandro seemed truly interested in her work. They started talking and the conversation was easy. He asked about her dreams and how she built her business. Camila felt like for the first time, someone saw her for who she really was. By the end of the night, Alejandro asked for her number. "I would love to hear more about your plans," he said. "And if I'm honest, I just really want to see you again." Camila hesitated. She had been so busy with her business that she hadn't thought about love. But something about Alejandro made her feel safe. He seemed kind and understanding. Their first date was over coffee, then dinner, and soon they were always together. Alejandro showed that he truly cared about her. He listened when she talked about her struggles and gave advice without making her feel small. He cheered for her when she had success. "You inspire me," he told her one evening as they walked in the park. "The way you built your business from nothing is amazing. I've never met anyone like you." Camila slowly opened up to him. He didn't ignore the hard parts of her life, and he didn't pretend that being a black woman in business was easy. Instead, he seemed proud to stand by her side. A few months later, he introduced her to his family. Camila was nervous. Alejandro had told her his parents were traditional, which sometimes meant they had old, uncomfortable ideas. But when she met them, they were polite, even if a little distant. His mother said nice things about her boutique, and his father nodded when Alejandro talked about her success. Still, Camila felt uneasy. Some looks lasted too long, some words didn't feel right. When she told Alejandro, he brushed it off. "They're just old-fashioned," he said. "They'll come around." She wanted to believe him. He had never given her a reason to doubt him. He loved her, supported her, and cared about their future. So, when he proposed a year later during a romantic dinner, she said yes. Their wedding was beautiful, mixing Camila's culture with Alejandro's simple style. Her family celebrated with joy. Alejandro's family was quieter, but they smiled. Camila chose to focus on the happy parts. She told herself things would get better with time. At first, married life was good. Alejandro moved into Camila's big house, which she had bought with her boutique's profits. He often told his friends how proud he was of his wife. Everything seemed perfect. But small problems started to appear. Camila tried to ignore them, telling herself that every marriage has challenges. However, little things, Alejandro said, started to make her feel uncomfortable. One night, after a dinner party, he said, "Your friend Isabella is a bit loud, don't you think?" Camila frowned. "She's always been lively. That's just her personality." "Sure," Alejandro said with a small smile. "But maybe next time she shouldn't take all the attention from you." She thought it was just a misunderstanding, but soon he started saying things like this more often. He made comments about her friends, about how they dressed or spoke. "Why do you hang out with people like that?" he asked one day. "Maybe it's time to find friends who match your success." Camila felt uneasy. Alejandro had always been supportive, or so she thought. But now his support seemed to come with conditions. Then he started questioning her business decisions. When she planned to open another boutique, he said, "Are you sure this is the right time? It's a big risk." "Done my research," Camila said. "I'm not saying you can't do it," he replied. "I just think you should be careful." His words stayed in her mind, making her doubt herself. Over time, he started asking about her finances. When she reminded him that her business was separate, he sighed. "I'm just trying to help. You act like you don't trust me." Alejandro also started acting different toward her. He got angry more easily. If she told him, he denied it and said she was being too sensitive. His jokes felt sharper. "You're so independent, Camila," he said one night. "It's like you don't even need me." Then came the comments about race. At a family gathering, his uncle said her natural hair was exotic. Before Camila could reply, Alejandro laughed and said, "She's lucky she can pull it off." Camila felt hurt. When she told him later, he waved it away. "Come on, you know I didn't mean anything. My family is just old-fashioned." She tried to explain how these comments hurt, but he didn't listen. "You're overthinking it," he said. "Not everything is about race." The final moment came when she decided to hire more diverse staff for her boutique. Alejandro frowned. "Shouldn't you hire people based on skills, not skin color?" Camila felt sick. "Are you saying my staff isn't qualified?" "I'm saying you're making it about something it doesn't need to be about." At that moment, Camila saw Alejandro clearly for the first time. Camila used to think Alejandro was kind and supportive. But over time, she started to notice something strange. He didn't really believe in her success. Instead, he acted like he was the reason she was doing well. He wanted to control her and take credit for everything she built. At first, Camila didn't see the problem. She thought maybe she was imagining it. But as time passed, she started to pay attention. She remembered all the little things he said and did. It became clear. Alejandro didn't like that she was successful on her own. He was jealous. So Camila started to be careful. She stopped telling Alejandro about her business. Instead, she talked to her close friends. One day, her friend Isabella told her, "You did this all by yourself. Don't let him make you forget that." Camila nodded, but inside, she knew it wasn't just about remembering. She had to be ready in case Alejandro tried to take everything away. One evening, Alejandro came home in a bad mood. Camila had just signed a contract to open another boutique. She thought he would be happy for her. But instead he frowned and said, "Another store? Don't you think you're doing too much?" Camila raised an eyebrow. "I've been planning this for months. It's a good decision." Alejandro crossed his arms. "Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. You could lose a lot if this goes wrong." Camila felt anger rise inside her. "I built this business from nothing. I know what I'm doing." Alejandro smirked. "Do you? Or are you just getting lucky?" That word, lucky, felt like a slap. People had said it before to make her feel like she didn't deserve her success. But hearing it from her own husband hurt the most. She didn't argue. She went to her office and looked at the contract again. For the first time, she wasn't doubting herself. She was doubting her marriage. The next morning, Camila made an appointment with a lawyer named Valeria. She wasn't sure if she wanted to leave Alejandro yet, but she needed to be ready if things got worse. Valeria listened carefully and said, "You're smart to come to me now. The biggest mistake people make is waiting too long. Let's talk about protecting what's yours." Valeria told Camila how to keep her business and money safe. She explained that Camila should keep her personal and business money separate. She also told her to make sure all the paperwork showed that the boutique was only hers. Camila left the meeting feeling a little better. At least now she had a plan. Camila opened a new bank account in her name and moved some of her savings there. She made sure her house was still only in her name. She also changed things in her business so Alejandro couldn't control anything. She saved proof of the mean things he said, just in case she ever needed it. Alejandro didn't seem to notice what she was doing. He kept making little comments about how they should share their money. When Camila said no, he got mad. "I'm your husband," he said. "Why don't you trust me?" Camila smiled, but inside, she wanted to scream. Alejandro felt like a stranger now. He wasn't the man she thought she married. Months passed, and Camila kept getting ready. She didn't fight with Alejandro anymore. Instead, she focused on her business and her plans. But she knew one day the truth would come out. She didn't know when, but she would be ready when it happened. One morning, Camila woke up to her phone buzzing. She picked it up and saw a message from Alejandro. It was short and cold. "I'm leaving you. I found someone else. I'll be filing for divorce. The house, the accounts, and everything else are mine now. Don't try to fight it." Camila blinked at the screen. She read the words again, hoping she had misunderstood. But no, it was real. Alejandro had made his move. He chose the worst possible time. He knew she had an important meeting that day. He wanted to ruin her focus. But Camila took a deep breath, put her phone down, and reminded herself she was ready for this. She called Valeria right away. It was early, but Valeria answered. "It's time," Camila said. Alejandro made his move. Valeria didn't waste a second. "I'll take care of it. First, we need to freeze the joint accounts so he can't take anything that doesn't belong to him." Camila thanked her and got ready for her meeting. She wasn't sure how she did it, but she went through the whole thing without falling apart. By the time she got home that evening, she felt stronger. Alejandro's message wasn't just a betrayal. It was a chance to end things for good. When she walked into the house, she noticed something different. Alejandro's car was gone. Some of his things were missing, his jacket, his watch. Then she saw a manila envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a letter from Alejandro's lawyer. Alejandro wanted the house. He wanted the boutique. He wanted their shared money. He wanted Camila to leave the house in 30 days and show him all her business records. Camila almost laughed. The house was hers. She had bought it before they got married. The boutique was hers alone, and she had all the paperwork to prove it. As for the joint accounts, she knew Alejandro had already emptied them. But she had been smart. She had made sure that losing that money wouldn't hurt her. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat at the dining table. She read the letter again. Alejandro was very proud and thought he could take everything Camila had worked so hard to build. He believed her success was also his, just because they were married. But he did not know how well Camila had prepared for this moment. The next few days were very busy. Camila and her lawyer, Valeria, quickly went to court to stop Alejandro from taking their shared money. She also told the banks not to let Alejandro use any money from her business. Then she asked her accountant to check all her money records and get everything ready for court. Meanwhile, Alejandro was making his own plans. Camila got another message from him. This time, he was trying to act like he felt sorry for her, but his words were mean. "I know this is hard for you," the message said, "but you're not getting any younger. At least you still have your little shop to keep you busy." Camila saved the message. She added it to a big file of proof she was keeping. She sent it to Valeria with a short message. "Use this." Valeria replied quickly. "Perfect." But it wasn't just the messages. Alejandro was doing more bad things. Camila found out he used their shared credit card to buy first-class tickets for a fancy trip to the Caribbean. He was taking his new girlfriend, a light-skinned woman Camila had seen before at one of his office parties. The nerve of him. Camila was angry, but she stayed calm. She called the credit card company and told them about the problem. The company agreed to cancel the charges and stop Alejandro from using the card. When Alejandro got to the airport, he would find out that his tickets were no good. By the end of the week, Alejandro's new life was already falling apart. Camila's lawyer had gone to court to tell the judge about how Alejandro was using shared money without permission and trying to take things that didn't belong to him. Valeria was sure they would win. and Camila trusted her. Even so, Camila felt hurt. Alejandro had not only broken her heart, but he was also trying to destroy everything she had worked for. Still, Camila reminded herself of one important thing. She had planned for this. Every choice she had made, having separate bank accounts, getting legal papers ready, keeping records, was for this moment. Alejandro thought she was weak. He was wrong. As the court date got closer, Camila kept working hard. Her shop was doing very well, and she refused to let Alejandro stop her success. On Friday, her shop was full of customers. She opened a new shipment of designer handbags, staying focused and calm. Around noon, her phone rang. It was Alejandro's mother. Camila took a deep breath before answering. She knew this would be a difficult conversation. Alejandro's mother sounded upset. Camila, I just talked to Alejandro. He said you froze his money and canceled his trip. What is going on? Camila smiled a little as she arranged the handbags. Did he tell you that he used our joint money to pay for that trip, or that he's trying to take my house and my shop? There was a long silence. Finally, Alejandro's mother sighed. He said you were being mean. Mean? Camila repeated. I'm protecting what's mine. The call ended soon after. Alejandro's mother might not fully understand, but at least she wasn't completely on his side anymore. It was a small win, but a win nonetheless. That evening, after locking up her shop, Camila felt even stronger. Alejandro had played his game, and now it was her turn. She wasn't just protecting her business. She was fighting for her pride, her independence, and the life she had built by herself. Alejandro thought he could break her, but he was about to learn how wrong he was. Alejandro started to realize his plan was not working. The first problem was at the airport. He and his new girlfriend, a blonde woman named Lucia, arrived ready to go on vacation. But when they tried to check in, the airline staff told them their tickets were not valid. The payment was reported as fraud. Alejandro was angry. Lucia looked at him with doubt. Didn't you say this was all taken care of? Alejandro mumbled something about a mistake, but Lucia didn't seem to believe him. Then came the next problem. When they got to the hotel, Alejandro had promised Lucia a fancy room at a top resort, but when they arrived, they found out the reservation had been canceled. There was no room for them. Annoyed, Lucia crossed her arms. This was supposed to be a vacation, not a disaster. When they returned home, things got worse for Alejandro. He tried to take money from their joint account, but it was frozen. His personal credit cards were already maxed out, but he had kept that a secret from Lucia. For the first time, Alejandro saw that Camila had been ahead of him all along. Camila stayed calm as she got the news. Valeria called her. The court approved the freeze on the money, she said, and we got a fast-tracked hearing. With all the proof you gave us, we are in a strong position. Camila felt relief. All the time she spent preparing was now paying off. Alejandro had tried to ruin her, but instead, he was ruining himself. As Alejandro got more desperate, he started sending Camila more messages. He was angry, then he tried to be nice, then he tried to make her feel guilty. You've ruined everything, he texted. All I wanted was a clean break, and you made this a war. Then another message. You can't do this alone, Camila. You're going to regret being so stubborn. Camila saved every message and sent them to Valeria. More proof, she wrote. But Camila was not just fighting Alejandro. She was taking back her power. She ignored his messages and focused on her work. Her shop was doing great. Customers kept coming in, and some of them had heard what she was going through. You're an inspiration, one woman told her. I heard about your fight, and I just want to say, keep going. Men like him don't deserve women like you. Camila was touched. She didn't know people were watching, but it felt good to know others saw her strength. As the court date got closer, Alejandro got angrier. He tried to claim that he deserved half of Camila's business and money. His reason? He had given her moral support while they were married. Valeria laughed when she heard that. Moral support? She said. We'll destroy that argument in court. Between the financial papers and proof of his bad behavior, he has no chance." Camila nodded. She was grateful for Valeria's confidence. She had picked the right team to fight for her. The night before the hearing, Camila sat in her office and looked over all the papers she had gathered. Everything was in order. She thought about the early days of her marriage when she had believed Alejandro was her true partner. But the man she had loved had turned out to be someone else, a greedy man who underestimated her strength. But Alejandro's biggest mistake was thinking Camila was weak. He didn't understand that she had built her life with hard work and determination. Every challenge she had faced as a Black woman in business, every obstacle she had overcome had prepared her for this fight. Alejandro thought he could take everything from Camila, but instead, he helped her see how strong she really was. The next morning, Camila walked into the courtroom with her head held high. Alejandro was already there, wearing a fancy suit, but he looked nervous. His new girlfriend, Lucia, was not there. People said she had left him after their trip went badly. She didn't want to deal with his problems anymore. Valeria, Camila's lawyer, smiled at her. "Are you ready?" she asked. Camila nodded. "More than ready." The hearing went exactly the way Camila had hoped. Valeria showed all the proof of what Alejandro had done, how he took money that wasn't his and tried to claim things that didn't belong to him. Alejandro's lawyer tried to say that he had helped Camila succeed, but the judge didn't believe it. "The evidence is clear," the judge said. "You have no right to your wife's business or her property. You acted irresponsibly with money." By the end of the hearing, Alejandro didn't look confident anymore. The judge ruled in Camila's favor. Alejandro's shared money with Camila was frozen, and he had to pay back the money he took. He also had to pay for Camila's lawyer, which made him look even more upset. Outside the courthouse, Camila took a deep breath. She felt free. Winning in court wasn't just about money. It was about proving to herself that she was strong. Alejandro had tried to hurt her, but she had overcome him. Now, she could focus on her future, her business, and the life she always wanted. As Camila walked away with Valeria, Alejandro stayed behind. He sat in his chair, slumped over, while his lawyer talked quietly to him. He had lost, and it was clear he had no idea what to do next. When Alejandro got back to his tiny apartment, the only place he could afford after Lucia dumped him, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. People he hadn't heard from in months were now staying away from him. Everyone was talking about what had happened in court. Alejandro had always acted like he was smart and successful, but now people were seeing the truth. What hurt Alejandro the most wasn't just losing money or being embarrassed. It was realizing that he had completely underestimated Camila. He thought she would be too weak to fight back. He thought he could take what he wanted, and she would let him. But he was wrong. Camila had been ready for him all along. After the hearing, Camila felt a mix of relief and determination. Valeria made sure Alejandro couldn't delay or change the judge's decision. Camila kept all her money and her business, just like she deserved. Her boutique continued to do well, and customers kept coming. One day, while setting up a new display at her store, Camila got a call from her friend Isabella. "Girl, you won't believe this," Isabella said. "Alejandro is telling people you tricked him in court. He's acting like he's the victim." Camila laughed. "Let him talk. He's only making himself look worse." And she was right. Alejandro kept trying to make people feel sorry for him, but nobody believed him. He left out the part where he stole money and tried to take Camila's business. So his old coworkers stopped talking to him, and even his own family started doubting his story. A few days later, Alejandro's mother, Beatriz, called Camila. She sounded unsure, almost sad. "Camila," she said, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Alejandro told us things about you that we now know weren't true." Camila listened quietly. The apology was unexpected, but it didn't erase the pain of what had happened. Alejandro's family had believed his lies without even asking her side of the story. "Thank you for saying that," Camila finally said. "But what Alejandro did wasn't just about me. He refuses to take responsibility for his own mistakes." Beatriz sighed. "We see that now. He's been staying with us since the hearing. It hasn't been easy." Camila didn't say anything. Alejandro wasn't her problem anymore. She had spent too much time dealing with his mess. Now, she was focused on her future. Meanwhile, Alejandro's life kept getting worse. He had no money, and people who once supported him didn't want to help him anymore. The fancy life he wanted was gone. He couldn't find a job because nobody wanted to hire someone with a bad reputation. Then, Lucia, his ex-girlfriend, started posting on social media about their short relationship. She didn't say his name, but it was clear who she was talking about. She wrote about toxic older men and relationships built on lies. People online quickly figured out it was about Alejandro, making his reputation even worse. While Alejandro struggled, Camila was thriving. Her boutique was growing faster than expected, and she even partnered with a famous designer. She worked hard and used everything she had learned from her bad marriage to make her business even stronger. She also started helping young Black entrepreneurs. She gave advice about money and running a business, making sure they didn't face the same struggles she had. Her story, once painful, was now an inspiration for others. One evening, Camila got an unexpected visitor, Alejandro's sister, Andrea. She held a small gift bag and looked nervous. "I hope I'm not bothering you," Andrea said. I wanted to apologize." Camila raised an eyebrow but let Andrea sit down. Over the next hour, Andrea explained how Alejandro had lied to their family, making Camila seem like the bad guy. It wasn't until the court hearing, when they saw all the proof, that they realized Alejandro had been lying. "We believed him because it was easier than seeing the truth," Andrea admitted. "But you saw through him all along." Camila nodded. "It wasn't easy. But I've learned that when people show you who they are, you have to believe them." As Andrea left, Camila felt lighter. Alejandro's family realizing the truth didn't change the past, but it gave her a little more peace. They had believed his lies, but now they saw who he really was. A few weeks later, Camila heard more about Alejandro's downfall. People said he had moved back into his childhood bedroom. He had big plans for his life, but now they were gone. When he tried dating again, no one wanted to be with him because of his reputation. For Camila, this wasn't about revenge. She didn't want Alejandro to suffer. She just wanted to move on, and she had. Her life was better than ever. The real victory wasn't Alejandro's downfall. It was the life she was building without him. One afternoon, Camila stood in her newest boutique, surrounded by her success. She felt proud. Alejandro had tried to take everything from her, but in the end, he only showed her how strong she really was. No one could ever take that away from her. Meanwhile, Alejandro sat in his old bedroom. His desk lamp cast shadows on the walls where posters of old bands and high school pictures reminded him of the past. His mother, Beatriz, knocked on the door and walked in with a plate of food. "You need to figure something out," she said, looking tired. "You can't stay here forever." "I'm working on it," Alejandro mumbled, but he knew it wasn't true. He had tried to get a new job, but people knew about his mistakes and didn't want to hire him. He asked old friends for help, but they didn't want to be involved. Desperate, he joined a company that promised quick money by selling expensive products to friends, but that failed too, because he barely had any friends left. Meanwhile, Camila was everywhere. Her success was in magazines and on social media. Photos of her standing confidently in her store made it impossible for Alejandro to forget what he had lost. Alejandro told himself that Camila's success was because of him, but deep down, he knew the truth. He had never helped her. She had built everything on her own. Alejandro liked to tell people that he helped Camila become successful. He made up stories where he was the victim and she was the one who did something wrong. She never appreciated me, he told his sister Andrea one day at a family gathering. I gave everything to that marriage, and she just left me behind. Andrea raised an eyebrow. She was tired of his lies. Alejandro, you left her. You took all the money from your shared bank account, tried to take her business, and ran away with someone much younger than you. Don't change the story. Alejandro's face turned red with anger, but he had no reply. He knew Andrea was right, but instead of admitting his mistakes, he became more and more angry at Camila. He started writing letters to her, full of mean words, but he never sent them. He even thought about going back to court to change the divorce settlement, even though his lawyer told him it wouldn't work. Still, the idea of making Camila's life difficult made him happy. But Camila didn't care about Alejandro's games. She was focused on her future. Her boutiques were doing great, and she started helping young black women who wanted to start their own businesses. Her workshops were full of people who wanted to learn from her. She wasn't just running a business. She was helping others build their own dreams. One day, Camila got an email from a journalist. They wanted to write a story about her and how she became so successful. Camila agreed. She hoped her story would inspire others. When the article came out, it talked about her hard work and strength. It didn't mention Alejandro's name, but it hinted at the challenges she had faced. The story spread all over the internet. People shared it on social media, and many new customers came to her stores. Alejandro saw the article too. It was in group chats he was still part of. Even his old friends were sharing it. People praised Camila for her strength. Alejandro felt embarrassed and angry. He sent her a message. You think you've won, but you'll see. I was the best thing that ever happened to you. Camila didn't reply. She showed the message to her friend Valeria, who added it to a file of all the times Alejandro had tried to bother her. It was another small victory for Camila. She was no longer just surviving, she was leading. As time passed, Alejandro's life got worse. He couldn't afford his small apartment and had to move back in with his parents. His mother, Beatriz, got tired of his excuses. Alejandro, you're a grown man, she said one night after another argument. It's time to take responsibility for your choices. But Alejandro didn't want to take responsibility. He spent his days feeling sorry for himself while the world moved on without him. Camila, on the other hand, kept growing. She opened her third boutique, and it was a huge success. She was already looking for a place to open her fourth store. A year after the divorce, Camila stood in front of her third boutique, ready to cut the ribbon at the grand opening. Cameras flashed as she smiled. The crowd cheered. This moment wasn't just about her business. It was proof of how far she had come. Inside, people shopped happily, chatting and laughing. Camila greeted her customers warmly. This was her life now, successful, independent, and free from Alejandro's negativity. Later, in her office, she looked at two framed pictures on the wall. One was a screenshot of Alejandro's last message to her. You'll regret this. Your little shop won't mean anything when you're old and alone. Below it was a magazine article calling her one of the most successful businesswomen of the year. She smiled. His words had meant to hurt her, but now they only reminded her of her victory. Her phone buzzed with a message from Valeria. Alejandro's latest appeal was dismissed. He also has to pay more court fees. Camila laughed. Alejandro kept trying to fight her, but he always lost. Meanwhile, Alejandro's life was still falling apart. He had no money, no home of his own, and no good job. People who used to be his friends barely spoke to him. He spent most of his time complaining that life wasn't fair. But the truth was, he had caused his own problems. One day, while Camila was working in her flagship store, an unexpected visitor walked in. It was Lucia, the woman Alejandro had left her for. Lucia looked different, more mature, more serious. I hope I'm not bothering you, Lucia said nervously. I wanted to apologize. Camila tilted her head. Apologize for what? For believing him, Lucia said. Alejandro told me so many things about you. He said you were controlling, that you didn't support him. And I believed him because I didn't know better. But now I see that he was the problem, not you. Camila studied Lucia for a moment, then nodded. We all learn at our own pace, she said kindly. The important thing is what you do with that knowledge. Lucia hesitated. I started my own business. It's just a small consulting firm, but I want to build something real. Seeing what you've done inspired me. Camila smiled. Good. Just remember, protect yourself. Always build something that no one can take from you. After Lucia left, Camila felt proud. She hadn't just survived Alejandro's betrayal, she had thrived, and in doing so, she had inspired others. In the months that followed, Camila's life kept getting better. Her fourth boutique opened with even more excitement than the third. She started working on a luxury accessories line and expanded her mentorship programs to help young Black entrepreneurs. Personally, she was happier than ever. She traveled, spent time with friends, and enjoyed life. One evening, she sat on the patio of her home, the home Alejandro had once tried to take from her. She thought about how far she had come. The journey had been hard, but it had made her stronger, wiser, and more confident. Alejandro barely crossed her mind anymore. He was just a memory, a lesson from the past. He had once tried to control her, but now he had no power over her at all. Camila's story wasn't just about success. It was about strength, self-respect, and rebuilding after being hurt. As she looked at the city lights in the distance, she knew her best days were still ahead. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.